Welcome to the Midlife Fulfilled podcast. Are you over 40 and ready to truly thrive? Well, on this podcast, we go deep on ways to thrive across the 5 pillars of midlife: health, fitness, career, relationships, and legacy. I'm Bernie Borges, midlife advocate, life coach, and your host. Subscribe now and get ready to thrive. Brent Pattison, welcome to the Midlife Fulfilled podcast, a maximum episode.
Bernie, fantastic to be here. Thank you very much.
Well, it's fantastic to have you. Thank you for joining me. Brent, I know that you have told me that your purpose in life at this stage of your life is to provide small business owners with what you call a path to their unique vision of success. And while we're not here to discuss that from a business perspective, you have in fact developed a system that you call the 3 Ps that is used in your consulting for businesses. But I was so fascinated by it, Brent, that I asked you to come on the show, come on the podcast, and explain that system, but through the lens of how we can use it in our lives, especially in our midlife seasons. Because, I really do feel that business is a metaphor for life. And I was really intrigued when we had our first conversation about the 3P system. And I thought, wow, great topic. Let's explore it. Let's unpack it. So Brent, give us a little context. Before you tell us what the 3Ps are, how did you come up with it?
So as far as how I came up with the 3Ps, it actually goes back to when I was a relatively new supervisor. The company I was working for sent us for these quarterly offsite guided trainings that were trainings provided by a leadership expert. And in one of those, this is probably in my early 20s, but in one of those sessions, the host of the session, his name was Dr. Harvey Silver, and we would attend these every quarter. But during every one, he seemed to remind, he used this quote from Lee Iacocca. And if you don't know who Lee Iacocca is, he was the president of Ford Motor Company. He came up through the ranks. He actually was credited with basically creating the Mustang. And he went on to become the president of Ford Motor Company, ran the company successfully. And then after leaving Ford, he went on to become the CEO of Chrysler when Chrysler was on the verge of bankruptcy. Within a couple of years, in addition to inventing the minivan that we all have come to know and hold in whatever regard we hold it, he also turned around Chrysler's fortunes from on the verge of bankruptcy to losing a couple $1 billion a year to being in super successful and profitable company. At any rate, during these leadership training sessions that I attended, the person who was leading them kept reminding us of this quote from Lee Iacocca. All business operations come down to 3 things. All business operations come down to 3 things. People working in the business, the product that you create for your customers, and profit. People, product, and profit. And the instructor, Dr. Silver, continued to repeat that lesson that all business operations, according to Lee Iacocca, come down to those 3 things: people, product, and profit. And the reality is it just resonated to me. It had simplicity. Yeah, sure, I like alliteration, but it was just simple. It was a simple way to understand all of the complexities of business and what was necessary in business as you make decisions, because making decisions is the fundamental key of being a good boss, of running a good business, is making good decisions. But it's about making balanced decisions. And the way I actually now like to say it is win-win-win decisions, decisions that have a positive impact on the people, on the product for the customers, and on the profit of the business itself. And that there's this connection between them, that you have to have happy people working in your business if you want to create a product that's going to create happy customers, that's going to create a happy customer experience. And ultimately, those happy customers are what creates happy profits in the business. The more profitable, the more fuel into the business, the more people, more product you can grow, and It becomes this continuous connected cycle.
Okay. So great. Thank you for the explanation, the background, the context. There's a concept that I learned early in my career as well that I have just taken through every aspect of my life. And it's a simple concept, the concept of reframing.
Mm.
And that's what I really want to do in our conversation, Brent, is I want to reframe this system of the three Ps from business to how we can apply this concept, this system, as you call it, into our lives in our midlife seasons.
Yeah. So I have given this a lot of thought. And you talked about my purpose burning, and that at the end of the day, making businesses better. If there's a way that we can make businesses better, we ultimately, let's face it, we make society better. So if we can also then translate that same model in a way that makes sense, I like that idea of reframing. Ultimately, there's a simple reframe here. If I considered the three P's of business to the three P's of my life, it still is about the people in my life. The product becomes the experiences that I create for those people, myself included, because I'm one of those people, right? I have to be happy with the decisions and the way that they're having it. The experiences I create for the other people in my life, the relationships, that's essentially my product. That's my personal product. What I do to interact with the people I interact with is the quality, or what is creates the experiences that is the product that me as an individual creates. And that ultimately that profit, well, that's really the fulfillment that I get from those strengthening of those connections from the relationships that I've built with the people in my life, whether that be friends, family, coworkers, or otherwise. It really does. Those three P's of business do translate very well to the three P's of Brent.
Yeah. Okay. So great overview. Let's unpack them a little bit more. So let's go back to people.
Sure.
On the surface, Brent, it seems obvious, right?
Yeah.
Because the world is made up of people, and our family is made up of people, and
Hmm.
everything we do in life and interact is people. But if we just dig deeper into that, what is it that we should be thinking about? Like, how do we manage our relationships with people? I know we don't have 4 hours, but like that's a
No,
big
and
question, right? But if
well,
we think about that first pillar there of people,
yeah.
like how do we get our head around that? Because it is big.
Well, it is big, and I so when I talk about success in business and what supports the three P's of business and what supports being a great boss in a business isn't much different than what supports being a good boss of your own life, Bernie. I talk about the three P's of leadership and the three P's of management combined, but in the way that we communicate with other people, it's ultimately that framework. And one of the things that I've been very focused on is that from a foundational skill set, one of the most foundational skills of being both a good leader and manager, or being a great boss in a business, well, it translates to being a great boss of one's life. And that's our ability to have good conversations. In business, they may be coaching conversations to help other people grow and improve. But I think ultimately, if we're having conversations with other people in any context, if there's a motivation to help that relationship grow and improve, Bernie, and have that mentality, that purpose, that's really why we're having those conversations, is to help the relationship or help that person, even if that's the case, grow and improve, then that translates inside and outside of business. And one of the things that I talk about in a coaching context in business, but again, applies in life, is that when we're having those conversations, what we really should be thinking about is what's in it for them. I use that acronym quite often of WIFT, WIIFT, what's in it for them, so that we're not having conversations from a selfish perspective of what I want to get out of it, but what would the other person want? And I make sure that that's part of the framework of my understanding of the conversation. I'm helping people grow and improve. And in order to do so, or I'm helping the relationship grow and improve. But in order to do so, I need to think through that mindset, that framework of what's in it for them.
I love that. And actually, something you said at the very beginning of that part of our conversation is you used another P word, Brent, and that's purpose,
I did.
right? What is the purpose in a conversation? What is the purpose that we have in a relationship? And because we have multiple relationships throughout our span of life, then I think if we reframe that P, that people P, in terms of what is the purpose of each relationship, each person that we're touching and engaging on a daily basis. And I love your reference to whiff it, right? Because we all know whiff them, what's in it for me, but I love turning that around and making it about what's in it for them. That is fantastic. So love that. Great place to start on people. So, okay, product. This one's a little bit more, I guess, metaphorical, right? So let's
I would say
unpack
so.
product a little bit. Hey, it's Bernie, and I'm jumping into the middle of this episode with a quick message. I just want to share something that I'm really excited about. If you're feeling like you're at a crossroads, whether it's in your career or leadership or just personal fulfillment, I want you to know that you are not alone. That is exactly why I'm now offering one on one executive coaching to help professionals like you gain clarity, take control, and just move forward with confidence. You see, I've been coaching people for a while now, and someone recently challenged me with this question. They said, Bernie, why aren't you availing yourself to others as an executive coach so that you can help them like you've helped me? That really made me think. The truth is, I hadn't looked at it that way before. But after reflecting on it quite a bit, I decided that it was time to make this official. So, if you're navigating a career transition, or you're just looking to level up in leadership, or just need a thought partner to help you figure out what's next, let's talk. I offer 3 coaching programs, and right now I have a limited enough free 30-minute discovery calls available to see if coaching is the right fit for you. No pressure, I promise. Just an honest conversation about where you are and where you want to go. Hey, if this resonates, book your free discovery call. Just visit the link in the show notes or head to the executive coaching page at midlifefulfilled.com. And now let's get back to the episode.
Well, let me unpack it in a business context first, and maybe we can work on that reframe as well. So, in a business context, I think sometimes a lot of businesses or even people in a business think of the product as the thing, the service that you provide, or the phone that you sell as the product. But that's just not true. Your product is the sum of all aspects of your customer facing event. That's the sum of your marketing, your sales techniques, how you create and then how you get that product into somebody's hand, the fulfillment of it, as well as, after you've sold them a product, the support that you provide them. It's that entire connection right from the marketing all the way to the close and when the customer is using. That's your product. Your product is the experience that you create, not the thing. The product is the customer experience. Well, the same thing goes in life. Our product is the experience we create with other people, the experience of interacting with me, right? It's either a positive one or maybe it's not so awesome.
Yeah, no, I love that, and of course, I happen to know that you have, I think, 30 plus years experience in the customer experience industry. So for you to bring that lens to the conversation, and I think you make a really compelling point, and to me, it reminds me of the importance of self awareness, Brent. And I think that self awareness is something that I'm big on, and something that I think we should all be thinking about. And so if I'm more self-aware of the experience that I create, and an example I've shared on previous podcast episodes is once upon a time, fortunately it was a long time ago and I've addressed it since then, but once upon a time, Brent, I was told by workers, colleagues of mine and people that were on my team that I'm quote unquote intense. And once I became aware of that, now looking back on that, I realized that I created an experience
Mm.
for those people that was received by them as, well, Bernie's intense. And once I learned that, I learned how to overcome that and sort of,
Well,
dissolve that,
you're
wall.
gonna have to tell me how, Bernie, because that's one of those things that I still work on. Because the reality, that's feedback. You and I share that in that regard. I've
Really.
had the exact same, and even still, and I think it comes down to having that passion that especially when you know that something can grow and improve, when there is that opportunity of challenging the status quo and really taking that growth mindset of that things can be better. I'm super excited about it, but that may come off as intense to other people. So having that self-awareness is very important.
Exactly. Well, I mean, the short story on that, Brent, is even though I didn't use this exact phrase, I used the whiff it
Mm,
approach. Not that phrase, but instead of thinking about me, I thought about the person I
sure.
was engaging with, and I focused on making sure that that person felt that I was present in the conversation,
Hmm.
and I was really engaged, and I was listening, and it was about the conversation we were having. And then the other thing that I did very intentionally is I smiled more. That's simple. I
Yeah.
smiled more, and there's two things people universally respond to. One is their name,
Yes.
and the other is a smile.
Smile. Especially when that smile is coming from the heart and it's not a
Exactly.
forced one. It has to be authentic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think whole under product, product equals experience for us,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think that's a great way to frame that up. Okay, what about profit? This is another one that we really have to get metaphorical on. So let's
So,
unpack that one.
well, profit in a business, and I'll steal someone else's metaphor, but profit in a business is the fuel. It's the fuel that keeps the business alive. If the business isn't profitable, if your expenses are more than your revenue, the business is going to cease to exist, which means you're not able to create those experiences for your customer. And you're not able to employ those people. The profit is the fuel. Well, in the context of uh, self-directed, your self-directed business of self, let's call it, your profit is that. I think honestly, Bernie, it is that fulfillment. Like, yes, there's money within our lives, but if we're really talking about it in the context of relationships, profit is the fulfillment that we get out of that, of seeing how we, by strengthening our relationships, that we see the the positive impact that has on others and creates for ourselves. That the profit is that fulfillment, that meaning that's created from strengthening those relationships. It makes us mentally healthier. It makes us physically healthier. Like, the quality of our relationships have such a impact on our both our mental and physical health. Like, I know you've probably read the Harvard study that has been ongoing for nearly 80 years,
Yep.
but the one thing that they've determined to be true is that the stronger, the healthier the relationships, the connections with other people, the healthier those people are, both physically and mentally.
Yeah. So what comes to mind as I'm listening to you explain that is really, fulfillment equals profit, right? It's a synonym
Hmm.
because, like
Yeah.
you said, profit really fuels a business. So likewise, fulfillment fuels us. It keeps us
Hmm.
energized. It keeps us motivated. It gives us purpose to continue to do something, or maybe purpose to go do the next thing that we feel energized or motivated to go do. And so I love that synonym and that relationship between fulfillment and profit. It is the profit in our life. I would even take it a little bit further, and I guess we can even just throw a whole bunch of synonyms out. Things
Hmm.
like family,
Yeah.
things like community. You mentioned the Harvard study and how the Harvard study says, it's all about connection, social connection. All of those things, I think, come together to to enable us to have quote unquote profit in our lives.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, Brent, is, since on a day to day basis, you are delivering this in the form of consulting and teaching with clients in a business context.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if conversations ever turn to sort of the dimension that we're discussing here, like the impact on people.
Yeah. So I've taught the subjects of being a good boss or being a great boss is really the it's that, praise your way to being a great boss. And I've taught those concepts in a full-fledged 3-day course in a corporate environment, but also just as an hour-long keynote, and or even in a little introductory 15-minute presentation to a small group of people. But I delivered it just a very key introduction into, the 3P success pyramid that I built for business. And that was one of my favorite takeaways, is that, especially when I talked about the 3Ps of coaching that support being a great boss, that is, that when we have conversations with people in a context where we're trying to help them grow and improve, that we prepare for the conversation by knowing who they are and what's in it for them, present very well with a sense of presence. That is, meaning that we're totally present for the conversation, even when we're the ones delivering when we're the one, but we're always listening, and then following up on our conversations so that we can then catch that person doing something right, so that we can offer them the praise that every one of us is craving. That that concept is applicable in all aspects of life, that you can take that same thing about how to have a well-structured conversation, or not to make it sound too mechanical, but have a system of how to have an engaging conversation that is helping the relationship grow and improve, to improve the experience, by actually knowing, who am I talking to and what do they want, present in a way that's truly using listening in whatever possible way that I can, my entire body, if that's possible, and that I'm following up on my conversations with people to truly strengthen them by then in the future catching them doing something right. So I use it as an opportunity to give praise effectively, to fulfill that craving to be appreciated, that is what makes us people.
Yeah. And, I'm going to key in on the word system, because you've used it several times in our conversation back at the beginning, and you just used it right here in this last story that you told. And what strikes me, Brent, is that I think a lot of us, and I'm being very assumptive here, but I think a lot of us don't walk around life saying, okay, what's my system? What's my life system? What's my
Right.
system for happiness? What's my system for fulfillment? What's my
Mhm.
system for success? I mean,
Sure.
maybe some people do, right? I mean, there's books out there, the Stephen Covey's books, and I could list, several of those
Mhm.
motivational speakers that have kind of put out books and systems, if you will. But I think most of us don't wake up every day and say, okay, I got to make sure I'm implementing my life system today, right?
Mm.
But I think in the context of the 3 Ps, it can really simplify our thinking, because at the beginning of this conversation, you said these 3 Ps are the core principles to any business, doesn't matter if it's a product or service. And likewise, I think what we're seeing in this conversation is that we can apply metaphorically these same 3 principles into our life's system to just bring our best every day and do the best that we can in living our life.
Yeah, I think that you're right. Look, and just building on that, I've read a lot and talked to a lot of people who are successful, and the reality is, Bernie, I think if there was something that I identified that is seemingly common to people who seem to have that true sense of fulfillment and also have success in all of those aspects of life. And I know you talk about the 5 pillars of life, but based on the conversations with some of the most successful people that I've had the opportunity and privilege of having conversations with, and some of the popular books out there, I think, Atomic Habits keeps coming to mind by James Clear as a contemporary one. But I think that there is something to be said about having those a little bit of that system to how we manage our life. Like, you know, eh, what are those habits, those good habits that I want to reinforce on a regular basis? And I think having a personal system to ensure that I'm working on building upon my good habits while still identifying the things that I want to improve isn't necessarily a bad way to go about it.
No, I agree. And really what I would challenge the listener to do is to, if this is not your first time listening to the Midlife Fulfill podcast, as Brent said, I talk about the 5 key life pillars: health, fitness, career, relationships, and legacy. So my challenge to the listener is, how do the 3 Ps integrate into those 5 pillars, right? As people, how do we look at across those 5 pillars, right? From the standpoint of every aspect that we've been discussing here today, in terms of our product, how does that fit into the 5 pillars? And then the profit, how does that fit into the 5 pillars? I don't think we're here to define and discuss that in detail, but I think that they can integrate. And I think it's maybe the subject of future conversation and or writing, Brent, because I think there's another dimension there. I'm kind of
Mm.
visualizing something that's sort of three-dimensional that I think maybe needs to formulate, before it actually makes it onto digital paper.
Yeah, I think so, and I'd love to see some of the that reframing that even maybe somebody in your audience comes up with, as far as how they apply that to whichever pillar of life is, whether that is health, fitness, re-
Yeah.
work, or legacy, or relationships, of course, which we've talked about a little bit.
Brent, I want to shift gears a little bit before we get to wrapping here. There's a particular profit experience that you have achieved in your lifetime that I'd like you to share. And
Sure.
that is, you told me that you are the founder or co-founder of the largest, um, is it not Dale Carnegie?
Not largest. So it's so I co-founded a Toastmasters club.
Toastmasters.
Yeah, and it was an advanced Toastmasters club. So for experienced Toastmasters, uh, but Leadership Speak is the name of the club, and we co-founded that a couple of years ago, myself and Brahm Mamone, and between the two of us, we came up with a clear vision for what we wanted the club to become, and we made it basically there's certain hoops you got to go through to charter a club because you got to get people interested, but we were the fastest club ever to charter and complete and become an official club. We made it a global club because it meets online, but we have representation from, I believe, now currently 28 different countries and that the club
Wow.
has membership on. And last year they were the most awarded club for the Educational Achievement Awards that Toastmasters tracks for all of their 14,000 clubs worldwide, but it was the number one performing club in the world. Yes.
That is impressive, Brent. And again, that's profit. I mean, you are having an impact on people, and that is profit. So I love that. I'm sure I can include a link to that in the show notes for this episode.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan for what Toastmasters is capable of doing because I think, communication skills and what it teaches is one of the most essential skills that we have in order to create that product that is the experiences of the relationships with the people that we interact with. And the more effective we are at communicating, the better we're going to be, the more successful we're going to be. And Toastmasters is one of those organizations dedicated towards helping develop leaders through effective communication.
I agree. My experience with Toastmasters was many decades ago. I was in my 20s, but it was a phenomenal experience. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, good.
So, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Brent, if someone listening wants to connect with you, just learn more about what you've got going on in your world, where can we send them?
Well, they're always welcome to visit my company website at 3P. So the number three, the letter P, solutions, because there are more than one, but 3psolutions.ca, not .com, but .ca. Of course, you can always reach me on LinkedIn. Pretty easy to find. I think I'm still the only Brent Pattison on LinkedIn in Canada that you're going to find. And those have got to be the easiest ways to reach and connect with me, Bernie.
Fantastic. Well, my listener knows that both of those will be linked up in the show notes. So, Brent, I just want to thank you for joining me for this maximum episode, for this episode of the Midlife Fulfill podcast. I think your 3P system has a lot of application in life, and I think it's given us all a lot to think about. So thank you for joining me today.
No, and again, Bernie, thank you, and thank you for the work that you're doing on the subject of leadership in life in general. I really appreciate it, and the idea that we're striving for fulfillment, especially in these different seasons in life. I think I'm stealing your words there, but thank you for putting together this podcast. Thanks for the work that you're doing, and thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.